Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. Happy December. It is December 2025, December 1st to be exact. Dr. Jaws here, and tonight we are tackling the penultimate lamniform shark on our live stream, the Smalltooth Sandtiger, Odontaspis ferox. There are two more species in the order lamniforms that we have to cover. And this is one of them. And I'm extremely excited to talk about the species tonight because it's kind of this like really cool. It's not really talked about as much. It's not as popular as the other the classic Sandtiger shark. There's actually three kinds of Sandtiger sharks, and this is one of them. And yeah, it has like a very interesting, distinctive look to it. It's unmistakable compared to the other Sandtiger species. Actually, all three of them, I will say, are pretty distinctive from each other. And this one is kind of more of like a midwater shark. It lives sort of in the lower end of the epipelagic zone, kind of more deep water areas. So I'm really excited to learn more about it. And there's actually a lot more information than I was expecting on small-tooth sandtigers, and it's just because its cousin, the Carcharis taurus, the sandtiger shark, is so famous. So I'm really excited to learn more about this animal. So, and just before we dive in, just a brief overview of sandtiger sharks in general. There's three species. They used to all be considered part of the same family until recently, when I think it was like 2021 that they reassigned the sandtiger shark, Carcharis taurus, to become its own thing. So Carcharis taurus is its own family, and I think the reasoning behind it was something to do with a mix of like its genetics, and then also I believe there's some aspects of its life history that are just a little bit different than the other two Sandtiger sharks. So the one that we all know and love, the classic Sandtiger shark, Carcharis taurus, that is actually now it's in its own family. And that is a species that has been featured in aquariums, or just like shark books, or just even like a lot of like nature specials. It's just such a iconic animal, and it's been so popular, and mostly because it's famous for having like this very like I don't want to say grotesque, but like these like it has this fearsome appearance where it's like bearing a lot of teeth, but it's also a very docile kind of shark. So that's like the classic Sandtiger shark. The other two species. Hey, Howard, welcome back. Good evening to you too. Happy December. It's kind of hard to believe that we're here now. So, but December 1st, 2025. So we're covering the penultimate lamniform shark, the Smalltooth Sandtiger. So I was just explaining how the Carcharis taurus, the common Sandtiger shark, is kind of the most famous of the three Sandtiger species. How the Carcharis taurus, the Sandtiger shark, recently... hey, Noah, welcome back as well. Welcome back. The common Sandtiger shark, Carcharis taurus, was recently reassigned into its own family. And then Carcharidae. And then the other two remaining Sandtigers are this one and the Big Eye Sandtiger. So we covered the Big Eye Sandtiger a while ago, but the Big Eye Sandtiger is this really awesome, freaky-looking deep water shark, just almost like jet black or brown in coloration, has huge bulging eyes. It's just unbelievable to think about that it's a living thing, you know. And then the Smalltooth Sandtiger is kind of like this interesting shark in between those two forms. So this is Odontaspis ferox. This species looks superficially a lot like a classic Sandtiger shark. It has the same profile, having the big head, the conical snout, the teeth bared, and just kind of like that ferocious appearance. But the coloration looks very different, and the eyes look really different too. Like Sandtiger sharks typically have these like really beautiful, like bronzy eyes with these very small pupils, but this shark almost looks like a white shark in the sense that it has, and the coloration is almost like a white shark too. Like the eyes are pretty large and pretty spherical with like large dark pupils. The pectoral fin, the first dorsal fin is quite a bit broader. Pectoral fins seem a little bit smaller. The namesake, I am curious to see how evident it's going to be as we learn more about the species. just with whether or not it has truly proportionally smaller teeth than other Sandtiger sharks. But the coloration very different. Again, it looks a lot like a great white as far as I mean, like let me rephrase that. It kind of looks like a great white where it has the gray body and the white belly, but gray whites have like a very sharp demarcation between the dorsal and ventral surface, and this shark has more of like a fade between the dorsal and ventral. But it's kind of interesting to see. So let's take a look at some footage, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that there's actually quite a bit of Smalltooth Sandtiger content on YouTube. So, and again, it's kind of like a deeper water shark, so it's kind of cool to see that it might show up in some of these clips, like here. So this is right in the twilight zone. This is a Smalltooth Sandtiger shark swimming in the frame. Really active looking, and immediately it's kind of amazing to see. It has a lot of this looks to be like a small individual, but this individual has like a really beautiful speckling that it's a little bit different looking from classic Sandtiger sharks. It has more of like a gravelly look. The proportions do seem a little bit different too, where it looks like the pelvic fins are pretty large, the pectoral fins are kind of small. That's actually a really cool clip. And it's great to see that there's like multiple angles of the shark. So, like other Sandtiger sharks, this is a cousin of white sharks, basking sharks, mako sharks. They're all in the same order, lamniforms. They are the mackerel sharks, and you can kind of see some of the classic features where it's like mackerel sharks tend to have like a conical snout, a really big head. They kind of have more of like a tougher look to them. It's hard to describe, but they have kind of like a gravelier, like just earthier, tougher characteristic. I feel like the Carcharodontiforms tend to appear a little bit more streamlined, a little sleeker and newer, whereas the Lamniforms, they just look a little bit rougher and a little bit like older, which is kind of cool because the order is a little bit older than Carcharodontiforms. Used to be the dominant order. Oh, it's such a cool shot. It used to be the dominant order of apex predatory sharks, and now you can make an argument that Carcharodontiforms kind of really took a lot of their niches in this age, where they diversified so much. There's only a handful of Lamniform species left. There's, I think I want to say 30, about 30 species, whereas Carcharodontiforms has about easily like 200. I think it's 270 the last time we counted, so... But it's so cool to see, even in its deep water, this is a pretty active swimmer. And that immediately is kind of a cool delineation from the classic Sandtiger shark. Because classic Sandtiger sharks, they actually like to be in shallow water. And they're known to gulp air. They're actually known to gulp air from the surface to kind of help maintain neutral buoyancy. And they're pretty sluggish looking. They don't really... like, they can swim actively, but they tend not to. Whereas here, this is a deep water species that is not near... You know, it's nowhere near air. You know, it isn't really... I mean, I guess now it's, like, kind of hovering, but it's mostly, like, kind of an active swimmer. Man, this is so cool to see. And you wonder what it goes after down here. Probably, based on the teeth, probably a fish eater. So probably preying on midwater fishes like lanternfishes, hatchet fishes, roughies. There's quite a few species that, even though they spend most of their time in the shallow water biomes, they will migrate down here, and maybe the shark kind of follows them. What's interesting is that with these closer shots, it looks like the lower jaw is a little bit smaller than, proportion a little bit smaller than classic Sandtiger sharks. Such a cool animal. The dorsal fin definitely now looks a lot more apparently, kind of looks more like an equally sized triangle on both sides. It's not, like Sandtiger sharks have more of a slope to their first dorsal fin, but it looks like Smalltooth Sandtigers is a little bit a different shape. And I think even the lower caudal lobe is a bit larger than classic Sandtiger sharks, because classic Sandtiger sharks have this like beautiful billowing caudal fin and are usually very bronzy in color. I mean, it depends on where you are in the world, because there's a lot of them that have these really pretty spots. But this is interesting. This shark almost looks like it kind of looks almost like a more active sand tiger. So definitely agree, Howard. It's really nice footage. So sorry, it's cool to kind of just follow it as it's patrolling these depths. I also really love it because I made the mistake of thinking that a lot of deep water sharks, when I was younger, like deep water sharks are smaller. But it's incredible to see that there's actually quite large predators down in the twilight zone. Great shot of the side. You can actually see some modeling. Very large gill slits relative to the body size. This individual looks to be a female. Fairly large second dorsal fin. Although the first dorsal fin is noticeably larger, and I think it's interesting because I think sand tiger sharks have pretty equally sized dorsal fins, so it's kind of cool to see that small-tooth sand tigers have more of a an imposing look. This individual is interesting. This looks like he had some jaw damage, probably from a fishing hook, unfortunately, on his left side. Great shot of the classic sand tiger grin. This is a male individual. And it's kind of got that classic billowing look of other sand tiger sharks, but the shape of the dorsal fin, the shape of the first dorsal fin, and how sharp the caudal fin it looks, is just a bit different from the shallow water sand tiger sharks. It's a really cool shot. The mouth does look different too. It looks like there's kind of like these folds. Where the lower jaw kind of folds into the upper jaw. Classic sand tiger sharks, it's not really that apparent looking, so it's really interesting. Definitely agree, no, it's beautiful animal. And I'm so happy that we get to see footage of it. So this is actually a cool clip of a small-tooth sand tiger in a shallow water environment. So sand tiger. Another thing that's different about this shark and classic sand tiger sharks is that classic sand tiger sharks are kind of, I don't want to say restricted, but they vastly prefer inshore environments, and you don't really see them in deep water. Whereas small tooth sand tigers, they kind of prefer deep water environments, and it's not often that you see them in shallow water. This is pretty eerie seeing a small tooth sand tiger swimming mouth agape right towards the camera. The eyes, again, are pretty distinct with the species. They help identify it because they do look a lot bigger than, or proportionally a little bit bigger than the sand tiger shark eyes. It's kind of cool to see that the first. I'm sorry. I thought that the shark was kind of touching a person's fin, but this is somebody freediving, so. But it's kind of cool to see that sand tiger shark, or the small tooth sand tiger, has kind of a large first dorsal fin relative to body size. I feel like it's proportionally larger than the classic sand tiger. Kind of fun fact, by the way. So this is free diving. So not scuba diving. Free diving is you are going down to these depths on a single breath of air. And what's kind of cool about I mean, I would never do it because it sounds really dangerous. But what's kind of cool about free diving is that free divers have these very special fins, which you'll probably see them in the clip. But a free diver's fins are very long, and it kind of helps them build momentum and gain momentum, so they can quickly ascend and descend to where they need to go. Whereas like a scuba diver's fins are very short. They're not very short, but shorter, and that they're kind of more for having that nice mix of building speed, but being able to slow down and being able to turn and pivot. So You can see right there, the freediver's fins are huge. Scuba diver fins are not that big, but so really cool stuff. By the way, that first clip is from a channel called Zoom Horizon. The second clip is from Freediving El Hierro, or sorry, Hierro. We've got a couple more interesting clips of Smalltooth Sandtigers. This one's a little fuzzy looking, but it's kind of cool to compare. This one is another shallow water encounter. The shark has such an interesting look to it, where I mean, it looks like such a character. Kind of a long bulbous snout. The eyes give it a lot of character because again, Sandtiger's eyes are they're a lot shinier. They're a lot like the pupils are a lot smaller. So with the large eyes here, it's not intentionally. It just kind of like it's this interesting kind of almost like more empathetic look. So this clip is funny. The title is El Monstruo. Noah, yep, freediving is scary and fascinating. Yes, I would never, I personally would never do it. I commend people who do it because it's like that's such a interesting challenge, and I don't think I would ever be interested in doing it. But um, it's scary, but it sounds like it's really rewarding. Whereas I just like scuba diving, which is a little bit chiller, a little bit calmer. So. That's a big Smalltooth Sandtiger shark just patrolling the seabed. It's really cool to see that these sharks attain such a large size, but again, they go after fish. They don't really go after larger prey items. And their teeth suggest that too, where they have the long, needly teeth that are good for hooking and spearing prey. So they don't have like triangular shearing teeth. I love the look of these sharks, by the way. They're very porky, very graceful, quite intimidating looking, but also just not aggressive, very active, but it's just such a cool animal. I kind of love that these sharks are just kind of literally lurking, where they could come out of nowhere and just kind of cruise into these situations. It's just pretty cool animals. It looks like this is a deeper water environment based on the color. So probably touched on this in the channel before, but as you go deeper and deeper into the ocean, you lose colors of light. So right now I don't see any reds really, or yellows or oranges. So this is probably I could see some greens. This is probably you're starting to get into like 30 meters, 40 meters. That's when those warm colors fade. So like the bluer it looks, like the deeper you go. Blue light is the light that penetrates the deepest into the ocean, and that is part of why the ocean is blue. Whereas like the other colors, they just they dissipate a lot more quickly. So when you get closer to the surface, you can see a full spectrum of light. So you see all these amazing colors, but as you get deeper and deeper, everything looks bluer. And these shots being as blue as they are, I think this is probably, I'm gonna guess 30 meters. Pretty deep for diving. So. We won't watch this whole clip, but I do want to get tidbits of this. This is more freediving with Smalltooth Sandtigers. A great shot of how the freediving fins work, so how you can go up and down very quickly. Triggerfish just chasing that person, which is really fun. This is so dangerous to do. So freediving, it's all about breathing and like how you control your breath and how you I guess how it works is when you take the breath at the surface, you're trying to maximize it as you go down, and you also have to exhale at the right time. I don't know. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna shut up because I've never done freediving before, so I'm trying to think through the mechanics of it, and it's like I guess if you're not breathing gas deep underwater, you're okay, but because it's not going to be expanding as you ascend. But I don't know. Anyway, here's a Smalltooth Sandtiger in shallow water. Great profile against the sunlight. And this is actually a great comparison with the other clip because you can clearly see yellows in this clip, probably, and oranges. So you immediately know that you're in shallow water, and also, uh, shots of the surface are a giveaway too. But with the oranges and yellows, you definitely know that you're in like maybe 10 meters. So pretty shallow. So cool to see this like dark shape lurking off the reef edge of this drop off. It's so cool to see that. So what might be happening is that this is kind of like a reef community, not necessarily a coral reef. This looks like a lot of algae, but it looks like this is a reef community, and the shark is kind of lurking at the edge of it. So there might be fish that are, above the rocks, around the rocks, and then the shark is kind of cruising alongside the rocks, maybe keeping an eye out for any unsuspecting prey. It's such a cool clip. Imagine if you were like, diving and, just kind of like cruising along the rocks here and you just see this shadow at, out the corner of your eye. It's so freaky. So I'm enjoying seeing how this individual is hovering pretty motionless in the water here, which is kind of characteristic of Sandtiger sharks in general. And this is a lot. The behavior here is a lot more like the classic Sandtiger shark, Carcharias taurus, where it's a reef. Or it's a species that likes structure, or a group of sharks that like structure. That they like reefs and they like just kind of like oh, that's a huge shark, hovering, motionless. Look at the size of that shark. Hey, an angel shark! Look at that. This is actually the classic angel shark. It is Quatina squatina. You can tell by the lines on the back. So that's exciting. So we might be in the Mediterranean. That is so cool. Lovely to see an angel shark alongside a Smalltooth Sandtiger shark in the same clip. Wasn't expecting that, so this is really fun. A great shot of an angel shark just kind of swimming pretty normally before it buries itself in the seabed. I love that you can see the pectoral fins are actually pivoted upward a little bit. So beautiful shot. A great profile shot of angel shark too. Diving further along the ledge. I think I'll switch clips if they're just still going after the angel shark. Or they might just be free to diving in general. Not advisable. Please don't sit on the seafloor. That's not good practice. We want to. Hey, Minjas! I almost called you Squilvin, but hope you're doing well. Let's see. Catching up in the comments. It's good to see you again. I like to watch freediving videos. I've seen trips from training, and people literally come up and they have to yell and slap them to keep them conscious. Oh my gosh, I cannot imagine. Man, there's so much that can go wrong. It's so freaky. I think the scariest thing I've heard of, well, not the scariest thing, but some of the things I've heard of that can go wrong as far as diving are like barotraumas. And if I remember correctly, it's how pressure builds up in areas like your mask or your eardrums, or just like you can. There's been incidents of people like having stuff like that where they get close to blacking out, and it's something to do with like how they were breathing or how they were ascending. It's just like, diving can be completely safe if you just follow the process correctly. But yeah. Anyway, conscious little aquatic creature, beautiful. Yes, the individual in that clip, that Smalltooth Sandtiger was enormous relative to the freediver. So, Uh, Still not used to this user display name update. Luckily, most people here have seen usernames super similar. Oh, I see, I see. Yeah, so mine, what was kind of funny is, oh, this is a great clip of a Smalltooth Sandtiger. When the YouTube change first happened, I panicked a little bit because I thought my college, oh, this is so cool. And I'll explain the college story in a little bit, but this is such a great clip of the shark's eyes. This is a Smalltooth Sandtiger, great clip of the lower jaw, the teeth in the lower jaw, and then the eyes too, where you can actually see a little bit of the iris. And we'll rewind it. It's such a cool snout too. It's conical like all lambda-forms, but this is a great individual. Very healthy looking, very large individual, beautiful lines. Some phrase in the fins, kind of indicating that this is an older animal. Really clean, elevated lateral line, which is that pressure sensing system that all fish have. Oh my gosh, this is such a good clip. It's so cool to see the shark looking, because the shark is like looking at the divers. It's like, see how its eye is moving. It's so amazing to kind of see that there's some kind of like awareness or some kind of registration of like what's going on in its surroundings. It's so cool. What a wildlife encounter. Oh, no ads, no ads. So anyway, I was just gonna say, when I was in college, we did like the silly, what do you call it? It's like the adjective game, where if you start with someone, so say, I mean, my name is Zach, and it's like, okay, do an adjective the same letter of your first name, and what's an adjective that begins with Z? And the one that I got is zesty. And so, and I also love like nature. So I think my original YouTube user handle was like Zesty Safari or something like that. So I changed it since then. But when the first, when we were talking about the YouTube change, that we were talking about that, and or we were talking about the usernames, and I had to double check. Like, wait a minute, is my username? What is my username in the background? Is it Zesty Safari or is it Dr. Jaws still? And it's still Dr. Jaws. So, because I think creators were able to actually update their behind the scenes username once they hit a certain amount of views. So, but fun story. But this is also an enormous individual Smalltooth Sandtiger. So relative to the scuba divers, that's a pretty big shark. And it's nice to see classic scuba diving, so that diver's very excited. It's a pretty big group, actually. Let's rewind. So, great shot of a Smalltooth Sandtiger Shark. It's kind of cool to see, you can kind of see based on the coloration, the gills, and how they kind of connect to the dorsal column, like kind of like the chondrocranium. And it's really cool to see it from a dorsal view, because it does look a lot like basking sharks. So even though this is a different family, it's the same order as basking sharks, and from a top-down view, it really looks similar. And again, it's kind of cool to see that these sharks, and white sharks too, and basking sharks of course, they all have huge gill slits relative to the head size. So, very large shark. What a wonderful dive opportunity. Oh, I love that. Any possible tangent you can imagine will eventually be covered. Love this comment, by the way. They seem so observant, for lack of a better word. They don't seem to mind closely passing by divers, but they also seem super cautious or observant. That's a great observation, actually. Let me get rid of this stupid ad and rewatch that clip, because that was actually a really cool shot. And we've covered a lot of species this year that don't have any footage whatsoever, so it's just such a delight to meet a species that has a lot of coverage. So here we go. I love the eyes. We were just talking about the eyes and how they're like looking at all the divers as the shark passes. So You can just see it where the eyes are like focusing on one thing and then another. Like, I love that the shark looks forward and then kind of looks back a little bit, and then immediately kind of like looks back at a diver just now. There's just something so cool about that. It's so eerie about it. It's almost kind of like a you think of dogs a little bit, where dogs do the thing where they don't want to look at you to. It depends on the situation, but they don't want to stare at you. They don't want to stare you down, but they'll steal quick glances and then look away. So it's kind of similar, which is really funny. It's such a great shot. What a cool shark to dive with. Where it's a pretty docile species. These are not like they look intimidating, but they really do focus on fish. They don't really go after anything larger than that. So it's just so cool to see that. Beautiful girl, beautiful shark. All right, so that's probably it's been a while since we've covered so much footage on a species, so I'm really excited to dive into what makes this shark its own species. So what delineates Smalltooth Sandtiger sharks from other shark species? So we're going to check out Sharks and Rays by Andy Merck and dive in. So Smalltooth Sandtiger, Odontaspis ferox. Common names are the Smalltooth Sandtiger shark, or ragged-tooth shark. This gets tricky because a lot of these common names are shared by Carcharias taurus. Honestly, both species are called sandtiger sharks. Both species are called ragged-tooth sharks. Sometimes sandtigers are called spotted ragged-tooth sharks or raggies. So the only one that's distinctive is Smalltooth Sandtiger. Let's see. A large, heavy-bodied shark, snout conical with a rounded tip. Teeth and lower jaw are curved and protrude even when mouth is closed. Angle of first dorsal fin posterior edge mirrors leading edge. And that's unique. So the angle of the first dorsal fin posterior edge mirrors the leading edge. So let's see if we can find a. That's a good photo of that, actually. So they're the same shape on both sides. They look to be the same size, whereas classic sandtiger sharks, they have more of a curve on their interior edge of their first dorsal fin. Let's see. Dorsal coloration varies from light gray to pinkish gray to reddish brown. Ventral surface off-white. Juveniles often have scattered dark spots or small blotches. The maximum size is 4.5 meters, which is pretty big. Size of birth is a meter to, well, it's around a meter, but let's see, 4.5 times 3.3. So 15 feet maximum size. So it's a huge animal if it was to attain maximum size, which is really cool. Conservation status is vulnerable. Actually, I think it was updated to endangered, unfortunately. Yes, so small-tooth sandtigers are endangered species, so we'll read about that in a little bit. But based on the biological traits of the similar sandtiger shark, Carcharias taurus, the small-tooth sandtiger, Odontaspis ferox, is presumed to have a late maturity, long gestation, and small litters, leaving it vulnerable to localized depletions. Although it is caught in small quantities as bycatch in many countries, little is known about its population stability. This shark lives in warm temperate or subtropical continental shelves, upper sloughs, and oceanic seamounts, usually close to the substrate, but may be epipelagic as sometimes caught over very deep water, for example 2,000 to 4,000 meters. The depth range is 10,000 to 880 meters, so sunlit zone and twilight zone. I'm going to click on Sandtiger Shark, Carcharias taurus, for comparison. Because you can see this is very different looking, where, again, it has smaller pupils, kind of like bronzier eyes, has more of a pointed snout. The lower jaw looks a lot bigger, actually, so the mouth overall looks a lot bigger. The dorsal fins proportionally look a bit smaller. The second dorsal fin and first dorsal fin look to be the same size. And the overall coloration is like this nice bronzy, brassy color for sandtiger sharks. So this is a good photo where they have more of a elongated look. Really cool. Very popular species, but just very different overall. Whereas the Smalltooth Sandtiger just looks a lot more robust. The first dorsal fin is larger than the second. The snout is a bit blunter, and the mouth is a bit smaller. But there's more of a compactness here. So, yeah. Let's see. Distribution. Although rarely encountered, disjunct populations occur in most temperate environments, including Algeria, Australia, Brazil. I want to see. I think United States has a few. Alabama, California, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, North Carolina, South Carolina. So that's kind of like a little all over the place. And actually, a better way to visualize the distribution is here. So on Ice and Amaryllis, you can see how patchy this is. So in that clip that we saw of the angel shark, it's really cool to confirm that small-tooth sandtigers do live in the Mediterranean. So based on the angel shark alone, you could tell that's in the that clip was shot in the Mediterranean. But again, it's really cool to confirm that yes, that overlaps with the small-tooth sandtiger's range. So here's the shark does live in the Mediterranean area. This is really interesting to see that there's a weird patchy distribution here, where theoretically it's off of Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Cuba, Yucatan, and Louisiana, and then you've got a little bit in California and Baja California. So it's just like weird scattered distribution. South Africa a little bit, Australia a little bit, Japan a little bit. So pretty interesting. Reproduction. Presumably aplacental viviparous and phagus layer limit, so that means siblings eat the eggs. But no gravid females have been examined in the related Sandtiger Shark and embryos indulge on embryonism. So it is likely the smallest Sandtiger Shark also does that. We don't know. But it's like other land of lambs do it. The closer related Sandtiger Shark definitely does it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, basket sharks may have a version of it, but I'm not 100% sure. Diet is small bony fishes, squid, and shrimp. Behavior. The small-tooth sandtiger is known to form small groups in relatively shallow water. Behavior is poorly known. Reaction to divers. Easily approached with slow, non-threatening movements. Chumming is not necessary to encounter a species where it naturally occurs. Diving logistics. There are 3 locations where small-tooth sandtigers may be seasonally encountered, but in each spot, sightings are a hit and miss. Probably the most reliable location is at a seamount named Bajo del Monstro next to Mapello Island in the eastern tropical Pacific. The best months for encounters are January to March. For reasons known only to the sharks, small-tooth sandtigers congregate on one small 60 to 70 meter deep reef slope. They are rarely encountered elsewhere around the island, but random encounters do occur, sometimes in much shallower water. I love that there's like an air of mystery to the species. Off the northwest coast of Africa, small-tooth sandtigers sometimes enter very shallow water, 10 meters deep, at reefs around El Hierro Island in the Canary Islands. Sightings generally occur in the summer. Apparently, small-tooth sandtiger sharks also occur at a dive site named Shark Point. Divers interested in this dive should contact dive shops in Beirut for further information. So, interesting. We get to see a couple amazing photographs by Andy. So here is one of the dive sites he mentioned, Mapello, Colombia. So this is a deeper water environment to meet these sharks. Really awesome shot from this environment too. So it's cool to see the seafloor where it looks like there's some kind of anemone. It's hard to tell. These like little white plumes look like anemones. Really cool shot of a small-tooth sandtiger opening its mouth a little bit. This is also Mapello. A little bit shallower water here. Really cool shot. There's a diver behind this shark. Even though he's a little further away, it still imparts a sense of scale, like how big these guys get. Another great shot of a diver and a shark. So, Smalltooth Sandtiger in the center of the frame, diver in the bottom right corner. So, this is a pretty large individual. Good sense of scale. And I think that's it as far as photos. No. Oh, cool. Let's see. Minja's dorsal fin seems to be positioned slightly further back than today's species. Might just be the angle the photo was taken. I think you're right, referencing the classic Sandtiger shark. So let's compare it. Oh, they actually have the big eye sand. Oh, but they don't have a clip of it. Shoot. Let's compare with the classic Sandtiger shark, because I think you're right. That's a great observation, too. Yes, so the classic Sandtiger shark, the first dorsal fin does seem a little bit further back on the body. There's some space between the free rear tip of the pectoral fin and the first dorsal fin origin. The first dorsal fin origin kind of ends at the first dorsal fin ends at the pelvic fin origin. So let's see what's going on with the Smalltooth Sandtiger by comparison. So this is interesting. The first dorsal fin is further up on the body. So great observation, Minjas. It is further up. The origin is kind of closer to the insertion of the pectoral fin, but not really not the free rear tip like in the Sandtiger shark. And then there seems to be a little bit more space between the free rear tip of the first dorsal and then the origin of the pelvic fin. So good eye, very good eye. These proportions matter. These do help with identification. So that's a really good observation. Let's see. For fish base, which sometimes has really cool bits of information, we get the name of Odontaspis. The etymology is not explained. Presumably, odontos means tooth, and aspis means shield, perhaps referring to how teeth comprise a prominent narrow cusp provided with two or more small side teeth. So that's one explanation. I'm glad that fish base actually goes to another one, which I ascribe to. Another explanation is aspis, which is Latin for viper, refers to the outwardly pointing teeth, like that of a viper. So that's what I think it is. So Odontaspis translates to viper tooth. It can translate to shield tooth, but I think that's not really a good translation, because shield tooth doesn't really make sense. But viper tooth does, because the teeth are like long and thin and, like pretty nasty. So I think that makes sense. The species name ferox is Latin for fierce, possibly referring to what Risso described as la voracite extreme, or its toothy, ferocious countenance. Interesting. So. Let's see. Biology found on or near the bottom of the continental insular shelves and upper slopes, sometimes in shallow water. Tagging showed species dives up to 2,000 meters at Mapello Island, Colombia. Feeds on small bony fishes, squids, and crustaceans. That's even better than the classic Sandtiger shark. Smalltooth Sandtiger shark's probably even safer to dive with, honestly. Uses its large body cavity and its long body cavity and large oily liver to regulate buoyancy. Ovoviviparous, embryos feed on yolk sac and other ova produced by the mother. Not implicated in attacks on people. Flesh utilized for human consumption, and liver for its high squalene content. Utilization of fins, jaws, and cartilage. Oh, I love that. It has very chubby cheeks. Just saw your comment, Minjas. At least compared to most other landed forms I know of. Let's see. Wouldn't the placement of the dorsal fin help with different depths, niches, through Zoom common consensus? So, yes. And I don't know. It's hard to kind of describe the specifics of it, but you're right. So you can kind of I'm trying to find the right way to like describe it. What's really cool about sharks, and actually I think a good equivalent is, funnily enough, trees. Where I was talking with my wife about one of the best classes I ever had was botany. Uh, is it botany? Because I was about to say herbology. I'm like, that's not real. Botany's real. Botany's real. Herbology's the Harry Potter junk. But anyway, botany class where one of my professors made a really great comment that just it's really dumb, but it actually was kind of one of those moments. It's like, oh, that makes sense, where you can gauge what an environment looks like based on the shape of the trees. Like you can gauge what weather is happening in an environment based on what the trees are and what they look like. So, for example, if you look at the east coast of the United States, we have a lot of forests here. And if you compare it with the Midwest of the United States, the Midwest has not that much forest. It's a lot of plains, like the Great Plains, right? And one observation is, oh, okay, so the east coast of the United States gets more rainfall than the center of the country. The center of the country doesn't really get as much rain as the east coast because the east coast has more and like larger trees, more or larger plants, more diversity of plants. Um, More specifically, you'll go to a forest in the say like in my home state's Virginia. So you go to a forest in the center of Virginia. The trees are nice and big and like leafy and bushy and straight, and they're just normal looking trees, right? If you go to the coast, you're going to see these really cool live oak trees that are very twisted looking and very gnarly, and they look like bent over. And you can compare the two and you realize, oh, the coast is getting a lot more wind. There's a lot more wind energy happening, and there's not a lot of cover. Like that tree is it's growing against the wind and it's being blown by the wind, and so it has this really extreme looking shape. Whereas the trees in the interior of the forest or the interior of Virginia are straight because there's not as much wind energy happening. There's more tree cover around it, so that's kind of a more established forest. And then a better extreme is like when you go up a mountain, the higher you go up on a mountain, the more extreme the environment is, and so the more like weirder the trees look, the smaller they are. Like it's a less and less conducive environment to grow trees. Anyway, that was a very long-winded preamble to the shape of trees can indicate what is happening in this environment and offers clues into like how this tree is living and things beyond the tree itself. Similarly, the shape of shark fins indicates where the shark lives, how the shark moves, what its lifestyle is like, amongst other things. But the fins are a very useful indicator. And one really cool thing is that there is an incredible amount of physics and mathematics going on between the sizes of the pectoral fins, the pelvic fins, the dorsal fins, the caudal fins. They all actually work together to create the optimal movement for this shark, wherein the dorsal fin like kind of cuts through water, creates a wake, like a vortice, and the way that vortex or the way the water moves against the rest of the body, the other fins, actually, let me see if we can do. I really hope there's like a I really hope YouTube has a model to show this, actually. Shark hydrodynamics. Because that would be a lot better way to show it than explain it. That's not really... I don't know if that one's going to work. That might not work either, because that's not really like a model. Let's try... Let's see if this is a model. Because I want to see if I can find a hydrodynamic model that is like showing, not whoever this is. Get me out here. Get me out here. Okay. That's showing what I'm trying to describe, where the fins all relate to one another. Okay, this actually might be it. This kind of is it. So this is kind of like a very basic hydrodynamic model that's sort of showing it. But there's a really great one I've seen where it's a shark in motion, and it's just showing how, like, as it's moving, as it's like swimming through the water, the fins are cutting through the water in such a way that it creates lift. It creates, let's see, shark hydrodynamics. Let's see, swimming model. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mingus. I really appreciate that, because I thought I thought I was going off a little bit, but the tree analogy really helps. Like the canopy, the fins equals extremely. Thank you, thank you. I really appreciate that, because like that's what I was going for. It just I didn't know if it was I was explaining it well. So this might kind of help. I promise we'll get back to the Smalltooth Sandtiger. This is talking about lift and drag of hammerhead shark heads, but it's not going to model it. I mean, like, it is modeling it, and it's really cool. Actually, it is going to model it. Okay. We might have seen this paper before, actually. Okay, so this kind of works a little bit. So this is comparing the side profiles of different shark heads, including hammerheads. And like figure D, for example, you could see how it's creating negative pressure, which helps generate lift. So there's I know there's models like this relating to fins, like shark fins, how they create lift. And the size of each fin creates a specific amount of lift. And there's a specific interaction between the pectoral fins, the dorsal fins, the pelvic fins, the caudal fin. Like, the size and shape of all of these all interact together and evolved in the right way. Like in this perfect, like each element is interacting with the other element. So it's really cool to see that. I think I might have meandered from your original question, but hold on. But thank you. Words are hard. So the original question was, how would the placement of the dorsal fin help with the depths niches? So, sorry. So, yes, to answer your question, what's interesting about it is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the more interior your dorsal fin is, it suggests more of an active lifestyle. For example, the great white shark has a very active lifestyle. The mako shark is a very active swimmer. They have their dorsal fins like right square in the middle of their body, pretty far up the body. Sandbar sharks are probably even a better example, because their dorsal fin is actually really scooched up right in the middle of the body, and they're pretty active swimmers. By comparison, cat sharks are very sedentary, very like, they just sit on the seabed. Their first dorsal fin is very far back on the body, and to the point, some species, it almost is like a little alarming that they, well, not alarming, but you almost have to do a double take to confirm that they have a dorsal fin, or a first dorsal fin. Deep water sharks like the frilled shark and the 6-gill and 7-gill sharks, some 7-gills are pretty active, so they might be a little bit of an exception to the rule, but they all do tend to be more like large, slow-moving scavengers. So, all that to say, I think for the Smalltooth Sandtiger, the dorsal fin being further up the body, sort of hints that it's a little bit more active a swimmer than the classic Sandtiger. This classic Sandtiger might be a little bit more lethargic, which might be true, because Sandtiger sharks they typically are pretty docile. They like to stick to specific reef environments, so they don't really they have they have sight fidelity that they like to be around certain shipwrecks or certain reefs, so they don't really need to like power through the water all that much compared to other shark species. So that might be it, but I'm not 100% sure. So, but that's a great question, honestly. So, also, I love this comment, Noah. I love evolution, 100%. Same here. It's so cool where we've talked about fitness before, but any animal that exists today is the fittest. You know, so the fittest is not being necessarily the biggest or the baddest. It is being the best adapted to your present environment. And every living animal today is the best adapted to its present environment. You know, where it's just like these traits arrived here for a reason. They worked. And what's kind of cool is that, you know, as the environment is constantly changing, the evolution is always going to be constantly changing too. Where, you know, we used to live in a world that it made sense, and or a world that supported, like, you know, dinosaurs, like a world that supported like huge, enormous predatory animals. Like there was a point in time in which that environment was conducive to that. Similarly, we still live in a world where there was an environment that was conducive to megalodon. So huge, giant predatory sharks roaming the seas. And then just with changes, so climatic changes or catastrophic changes like the meteor, the K2 meteor, it's kind of amazing that they change the environment, and therefore the impact in which they changed the environment was enough where dinosaurs weren't the best thing to be at that time. Like that wasn't the most fit. Like everything changed in such a severe way where it's like, the same with megalodon. There was a point where it just wasn't the most fit, where it's like, oh my gosh, you have to keep fueling this massive animal, and it's just like the biggest is not necessarily the best. It's like you know, smaller things survived, and you know, it's just a constantly, like I was about to say constantly evolving, lol, but it's like it's a constantly changing environment and dynamic. So it's just so cool to see. So yeah. Anyway, we'll continue with the Smalltooth Sandtiger. Love this tangent though. So Smalltooth Sandtiger, great illustration by Mark Dando with the key features for the species. So eyes small without a nictitating membrane. All lamniforms lack a nictitating membrane, so that's kind of a basic trait. But first dorsal fin much larger than the second dorsal and anal fin, so that is a unique feature compared to the classic Sandtiger Shark. What is really interesting also, placement of the first dorsal fin being further up the body, interior to the body, sometimes indicates a more active lifestyle. The ratio of the first dorsal fin to the second dorsal fin also can indicate how active or passive the shark is. So if a shark has a huge first dorsal fin and a tiny second dorsal fin, it typically indicates this is a fast-moving shark. If both fins are equal in size, typically indicates it's kind of a slow-moving shark. This fin sizing kind of suggests that this shark is a little bit more active than the classic Sandtiger, because classic Sandtigers have equally sized dorsal fins, more or less. So, caudal fin asymmetrical with slight bump posterior to upper precaudal pit. Ventral caudal lobe short, stout. Anal fin posterior margin strongly concave. Head flattened, snout conical and relatively long. Teeth all shaped with long central cusp, mostly with 2 or 3 cusplets on each side of the cusp. So, a lot of interesting English names here. So for this species. So we've got the oh, actually, this is really confusing. We've got the Big Eye Sandtiger, which is not correct. That's a really bad name to use for the species because we already have a Big Eye Sandtiger. And let's see if we can get a picture of it, actually. Just for comparison. There's one photo that I love, and it's this one. This is just such a. This is the big eye Sandtiger shark. So this is Odontaspis noronhai, which is a cousin of the Smalltooth Sandtiger. So it's another kind of sandtiger, but it lives in very deep water. It is such an amazing looking animal. It's so scary looking. Just imagining like a Sandtiger shark in the Twilight Zone and Midnight Zone. This is really what it is. We did a whole episode on the species, so if you haven't seen that episode, I highly recommend it. It would be fun to kind of compare with this episode. And actually, we did do the classic Sandtiger shark, so we've covered all three Sandtiger species. But yes, so this is the big eye Sandtiger. So the deep water one, like the really deep water one, is the big eye Sandtiger. So applying that English name to Odontaspis ferox is a little I don't love it because it's kind of confusing. So we got blue nurse shark, which is like not great but not terrible. The bumpy tail ragged-tooth, which I kind of like. The fierce Odontaspis, which I'm shocked by. It's kind of weird name, but or not shocked, but interesting name. The fierce shark, I kind of like that actually. So the fierce shark, pretty cool name. Not very descriptive, but I actually really do like it. The herps nurse shark, that's a little confusing. Ragged-tooth shark, sand shark, hate that. Sandtiger shark, Smalltooth Sandtiger, Smalltooth Sandtiger, Smalltooth Sandtiger. So we've got an Italian Cagnaccio. We've got Sarda, Sorayo in Spanish. Squale feroce in French. Schildzanhai? Schildzanhai in German. Schildzanhai. So, okay, I'm gonna stop. But a lot of interesting names for the species. So, let's see. We won't read through the entire description since we've done most of that already. Let's see. Medium gray above, lighter below, young black tip dorsal fin, some individuals with darkish reddish spots. Just to kind of like highlight on this, we've seen this, but just to highlight on it. So we definitely know that the embryos eat eggs in the womb, but we don't know if they eat siblings. So in Sandtiger sharks, they definitely eat their siblings, but Smalltooth Sandtiger, we're not sure yet if that's what they do or if it's just eggs. So sometimes in shallow water, benthopelagic at 13 to 420 meters. So looks like it spends maybe not equal amount of time, but time between these sunlit and twilight zones. So really cool clip of a Smalltooth Sandtiger just swimming down a rock wall. Male individual descending pretty rapidly. It's really cool to see, actually. Really awesome collection on teeth, so we'll take a look. So this looks like a almost like a cross section here. The details are very interesting. Nice close up. Really beautiful tooth collection. And actually, this is different from Sandtiger shark teeth. So Sandtiger shark teeth have two cusplets, so there's usually 3 points. But it looks like Smalltooth Sandtiger teeth have these really wacky looking teeth that are 5 points, so 5 cusplets. So pretty intimidating looking. It's really freaky, quite bristly. Great jaw set of a Smalltooth Sandtiger. Collected in the 70s. Trying to make sure that... Sorry about that. I'm trying to make sure that I could get the full view. There we go. Sorry about that. Beautiful view of the upper jaw. Uh, Multiple rows of teeth tucked in that classic conveyor belt. A nice shot of the cusplets here. So I myself have. I'm not going to move it because I don't. Well, I guess I will move it. Oh, actually, no. I have a piece of it here. I've shown this before, but I do have. Um, this is one of the few legally collected Sandtiger jaws. This was a gift from the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. So I don't know if you could see that in the bottom left corner, but this is a classic Sandtiger Shark jaw set that I'm holding. And it's going to be kind of cool to compare. Let's see if we can compare the lower jaws. Let's see. They do look similar. What I want to compare is the number of cusplets. So here on the Sandtiger Shark's jaw, I definitely have only 3. So you have the main cusp and then 2 cusplets on the side. So just to really zoom in on that. So beautiful jaw set. What's kind of cool is like as you go further back in the jaw, further back in the jaw, you get into these like smaller and smaller teeth until you get into this like molar form plate, like right here. So, and these are razor sharp. I keep saying this, but like shark teeth are razor sharp. This is my home defense system. It's like, I mean, they're no joke. I've cut myself on shark teeth before, like just cleaning jaws. They are literally razor sharp. And no wonder some cultures have used shark teeth for swords. Polynesian cultures have actually had swords adorned with, or clubs adorned with Sandtiger shark teeth. Or no, sorry, tiger shark teeth. Tiger shark teeth. So, but it's kind of cool to compare that even though these are closely related species, something as important as tooth morphology is actually pretty different between them. Like the overall shape is the same, but it's kind of interesting that Sandtiger sharks have 3 cusplets and Smalltooth Sandtigers have 5. That's pretty distinct, and this may be one of the justifications for having them be their own families, where you have Carcharidae, which are the Sandtiger sharks, and then you have Odontaspididae, which are like the old school Sandtiger sharks. So the Smalltooth Sandtiger and the Big Eye Sandtiger are part of the same family, Odontaspididae, and then the classic Sandtiger shark was recently redescribed, put it its own family, Carcharidae. So really great photo, sad event of a Smalltooth Sandtiger shark washed ashore. Let's see. In the inlet of Villanova de Arosa, first recorded species in Galician waters. Kind of amazing, actually. This again. These are distant. I mean, they're lambdiforms, so in the same order as basket sharks, and you could just from this angle, you can actually see it. You can see how basket sharks and these kinds of sharks are related. So. Great photo of a living individual in a deep water environment. Coco National Park. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. I just saw the comments. Oh my god, I want to say you talked about this before. It's super sick to be able to say you've legally attained specimen. To be fair, I wouldn't want to rob a house and owner ran into me full shark teeth. Yeah, whacking an invader with a shark jaw is bad news. And thank you. I'm very grateful for it, especially since I've used it for teaching. Where when I would do like book signings or lectures, I would actually bring that jaw set in to kind of like show people. And that jaw specifically, that set came from the 70s, but I'm trying to remember what happened with it. That set came from the 70s, and it was in a freezer where they didn't really have use for it, and the reason being is that they didn't have data on it, unfortunately. So for any kind of fisheries material, whether that is an actual preserved fish or a jaw set, you really need the date, the time, not time, I guess, but like time is ideal, but like you need the date that it was collected. So the year, the month, the day would be ideal. So day, month, and year it was collected. You definitely need the coordinates for where it was collected from. You should have the author name, like who collected it, especially if they used it in other material. And then any other information you can provide, where like what was the weather like that day, salinity, temperature, anything, any detail like that would be very helpful. But the big things are location and date. And unfortunately, the Sandtiger Shark specimen that I have, I think it had a date, but it didn't have a location, so it's not really useful. Where it's like, okay, we don't know where this came from. So the species, it's useful, but if you were doing a study on, like the tooth morphology, but overall, it was kind of taking up space, and they were trying to find a home for it, and I was like, yes, please, yes, please. So legally obtained Sandtiger jaw set, and I say that because sandtigers are an endangered species. Actually, now they're critically endangered, so should not. I shouldn't advertise it, but I do appreciate it. It is really, it's a really cool, like, just teaching tool, just showing how shark's teeth work and the functional rows. And actually, I wasn't expecting to pull it out for today, but it's actually kind of cool to compare it with the Smalltooth Sandtiger teeth, where as far as the cusplets go. So comparative morphology, like literally. So pretty fun. Let's talk about conservation for this species. So the Smalltooth Sandtiger is endangered, and actually, let's look up. I do want to look up all of them. I know the classic Sandtiger is critically endangered. The Big Eye Sandtiger, the really scary looking one, I'm pleasantly surprised to see is least concerned. This is going to pull up in a little bit. So, Big Eye Sandtiger is least concerned, which I'm very pleasantly surprised by. Just because the other species are not doing well. We'll go back to the Smalltooth Sandtiger. Oh, sorry, ferox. Global. Alright, so Smalltooth Sandtiger is endangered. And we're going to learn why. The Smalltooth Sandtiger is a large shark with a widespread but patchy global distribution, inhabiting both continental coasts and numerous offshore and oceanic islands. It is demersal on the continental insular shelves and upper slopes at depths of 10 to 1,015 meters, and is occasionally seen near coral reef drop-offs, rocky reefs, and gullies. It may also be epipelagic above oceanic ridges. The biology is poorly known, however, it is thought to have very low biological productivity, greatly reducing its ability to withstand fishing pressure. Across much of its range, the Smalltooth Sandtiger is captured as targeted catch and bycatch in artisanal, recreational, and industrial fisheries, using a wide variety of fishing gears, including midwater and demersal trawl, vertical and demersal longline, demersal gillnet, spears, harpoons, and handline, and may be retained for its meat unless local regulations prohibit retention. Across large parts of its range, intense and unregulated fisheries operate in the core depths of this species, which is 300 to 700 meters. So it's right in the midnight zone. Twilight zone, right in the twilight zone. Limited data are available on population size, trends, and structure of the Smalltooth Sandtiger. The species is very infrequently reported and has been confused with other sharks, making monitoring population trends over time difficult. The low number of records in the Atlantic combined with high intrinsic sensitivity may reflect the species was previously overfished there. It is inferred to have disappeared from most of the Mediterranean Sea based on the absence of recent sightings or catches. It has been overfished in a targeted deepwater shark liver oil fishery in the western Indian Ocean. In the Pacific Ocean off southeastern Australia, the smalltooth sandtiger has been estimated to have undergone a greater than 99% population reduction over 3 generation lengths on regularly trawled upper slope grounds. The smalltooth sandtiger is suspected to have undergone a population reduction of 50 to 79% over the last 3 generation lengths, based on levels of exploitation, and is therefore assessed as globally endangered. So, man. Let's look up conservation actions. Is there anything that we're doing to help it? And by the way, something happened in the shark world in a good way, and I'll pull that up in a little bit. There was an interesting development that happened with sites. I want to say so. Let's see. Catch it up with comments. Oh, let's see. My late boss, Professor, lended me a lobe finfish skull. Oh, that's really cool, actually. Oh my gosh, Minjas, that's amazing. Some sort of lungfish. It's really such a privilege to see that sort of thing in person, plus legally. I'm gonna star that. That is so cool. So lobe finfish, really, really uncommon group of fishes. The exceptions to, because it's like I think of there's lungfish, coelacanths, and I want to say there's one more that I can't remember. But that's such a privilege. It is so cool. So I definitely agree to both comments from Minjus and Noah. 99% is extreme. It's actually one of the worst. It might have been the worst estimated decline that we've seen. Or it's one of them on the channel, unfortunately, for a shark. And then Noah, I definitely agree. I hope we don't lose them. I have good news. Part of the site's development is shark ecotourism is really helping to bring species back. And I'm going to read the Smalltooth Sandtiger conservation actions, and then I'll pull up the recent sites news. But as we've seen, this is a popular dive species, and I think it's going to be okay. I predict it's going to be okay because this is such a treat to see, and I'm pleasantly surprised that we've got so much footage of it. So there's definitely people around the world who enthusiastically want to meet this shark and dive for it, and will come over, will pay for dives with smalltooth sandtigers. So that is a huge economic incentive. A live shark is worth I think it's like 100 more times than a dead shark. Like the amount of revenue that you can generate, and just speaking from just a resource perspective, because I love sharks no matter what. So it's like they're more than a resource to me. Like they're so much more than that to me. But if someone was just even looking at it from a utilitarian standpoint in terms of like a fisheries resource or marine resource, the amount of money a live shark generates versus a dead shark, it's just astronomically different, where a live shark generates far more ecotourism and is far more valuable than a dead shark for its meat or fins or whatever. So Minjus, it is. It might be used to ecotourism being used in a slightly negative connotation. I'm happy to hear I was wrong instead of instead it's been helping. So it is debated. I personally think ecotourism helps. I do think it's a good thing overall. The debate is valid because there is really good debate about, is it interacting with the species? Is it interfering with the species? Is it kind of messing up their biology? A famous example is Bega Lagoon in Fiji with bull sharks, where bull sharks are being hand-fed by dive operators, and they're being conditioned to go up to dive operators, and there's been a lot of debate about that. However, if we didn't do that, you'd still have millions of sharks being slaughtered every year, regardless, right? And I feel like the amount of good versus like the cost versus benefit on ecotourism versus as far as doing it versus not doing it, compared to the enormous impact fisheries have had on sharks in general, I think right now it's a good thing to do. I think that can change, kind of in the theme of evolution. I think if we as humans veer away from relying on fisheries and veer away from like, maybe like you never know what could happen in a couple centuries. Like if we slowly are kind of like, yeah, maybe we don't really want to have as much fish as we thought we wanted, like maybe that will change. But in the meantime, we're overfishing the seas. It's really important. I think it's really important to bring awareness to sharks. And I think, yes, I love this comment, to humanize these animals and hopefully there will be less killing. Yes. Rachel Carson has a great quote where the more it's something along the lines of like the more we share the wonders of around us, and the more that we take time to appreciate the wonders around us, the less appetite there will be for destruction. And she's absolutely right. One thing I really care about is I've loved going to state parks. The Virginia State Park system is fantastic. It's one of the best in the country, where there's a really cool diversity of habitats, and each park is actually like pretty quiet and pretty open, so there's a lot to explore. And I found that being in those environments and just taking time to be with nature, it just helps. It educates you in a way that just it's hard to describe in a book. Just actually like physically being there and interacting with those animals, or just breathing in that air, or just being in that environment, it's just very different. And I think similarly, having an amazing experience of a shark in the wild, like being able to just spend time with them and to share space with them, I think it taps into something that is not spoken, and it taps into something that is more ethereal than, like biology as a subject, or like fisheries as like a practice, or like numbers in a book. Like I think there's something there, which is so cool. So related to that, I'll get back to conservation actions for the Smalltooth Sandtiger sites sharks. But something happened. I was reading about it. Maybe it's this one. Okay. So this is not the specific article I was reading, but this is the same subject. So this is not I have not read this article, so if it gets wacky, I apologize, but because I'm not familiar with the source, but this is the same subject. So, victory, more than 70 shark and ray species granted landmark global protections under CITES. So, in a historic breakthrough for marine conservation, more than 70 species of sharks and rays have been granted stronger international protections under CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. Conservationists are calling it one of the most significant victories for ocean wildlife in years. So this is so cool that it's really exciting to share this and experience this, because we've talked about success stories on this channel. We've talked about a lot of like horrors on this channel. Like we've talked about like a lot of like conservation can be a very depressing subject, because we talk about like how many sharks are like not doing well and need our help. So it's so special to experience news, like experience a development that actually is a victory, or a thing that's helping them, a thing that's helping pushing sharks in the right direction, where this is getting closer and closer to being venerated in the way that whales are venerated, where there's widespread conservation of whales, where most people, or a lot of people in the world just wouldn't even dare touch a whale. I mean, it depends on the society, because some absolutely do. But whales have such a unique status where there's and such a uniquely wide recognition for just being a poster child for conservation, and an animal that you don't really mess with or try not to mess with. And I think sharks are heading in that direction too, which I'm excited about. But I'll keep reading. Whale sharks, along with all manta and devil rays, have now been uplisted to Appendix 1, the highest level of protection, effectively banning all commercial international trade of these vulnerable species to their products. And their products. So this is huge. Never in my lifetime until now have I seen a shark be listed as Appendix 1. We've had a few sharks listed as Appendix 2, so that's whale sharks, white tips, I think great whites are Appendix 2. Makos, I think, are Appendix 2. I could be wrong. I think some hammerheads are Appendix 2. But as the article said, Appendix 1 is the highest level. It is basically, you can't touch this species, don't mess with this species. Like, this is like the panda bear of the sea. You just cannot touch it. So, really exciting that this has been afforded to the whale shark. This follows last week's critical decision to also grant Appendix 1 protections to the rapidly vanishing oceanic white-tip shark. So whale sharks and oceanic white-tips are getting Appendix 1 recognition. It's so exciting because both species, when you look at my favorite shark book, Sharks of the World, which was published in 2021, you know, there is no Appendix 1 species listed in that book, and that had the most up-to-date information. It's so exciting to be like, okay, whale sharks and oceanic white-tips are actually, getting the top protection. This used to be afforded just to sawfish, deservedly so, but it's super cool to see this. So let's see what else that we got as far as the news. The move comes at a crucial moment. Sharks are essential apex predators who keep marine food webs balanced and healthy. When shark populations collapse, entire ecosystems unravel, affecting everything from coral reef health to fish populations. Protecting them is not optional; it's vital for the future of our oceans. Today we mark an unprecedented and historic victory for sharks and rays at CITES. What began as an Appendix 2 listing victory for manta rays at the Conference of Parties in Bangkok in 2013 has now culminated in complete international commercial trade bans in manta and devil rays, whale sharks, and oceanic white-tip sharks, the strongest and most comprehensive global protections ever afforded to these species. It's super, super cool. This is from Sean Henricks, Emmy Award-winning cinematographer and founder of Only One. So cool. These wins could not have come at a more critical time when manta and devil rays have declined by up to 99% in some regions. Global whale shark populations have fallen more than 50%, and oceanic white-tip shark populations have plummeted by 80 to 90%. We are so grateful for the countries that voted to support these proposals and to the international community who rallied these voices in resounding support. Last week's decisions also established a zero export quota for several guitarfish and wedgefish species, many of which are already critically endangered. This effectively shuts down nearly all legal international trade. It's amazing. Some more stuff. Taupe and smoothhound sharks, commonly sold globally as flake and fish and chips, received site protections for the first time were listed under Appendix 2. Trade can now only occur if it's proven sustainable. Deepwater gulper sharks, heavily hunted for liver oil used in cosmetics, were also added to Appendix 2. With 3/4 of gulper shark species threatened with extinction and populations declining by up to 80% in some regions, this protection is long overdue. Let's see. I want to see if we can get to ecotourism. The sweeping wave of protections brings renewed hope for shark and ray species, push to the brink, and marks a powerful shift towards safeguarding ocean ecosystems vital to our plant survival. So, very cool. I think... Let's see if I could get one more. Oh, actually, here's CITES itself. Here we go. Let's see. Just gonna search for shark. Aquatic species discussions covered non-detrimental findings, story corners, and queen conch. Proposal 9 aquatic species proposals were accepted, including transfer to Appendix 1 for whale shark, oceanic white-tip shark. School sharks and gulper sharks were listed as Appendix 2. Okay, so that's just the actual summary of the event. So, but still, extremely exciting stuff. That's kind of really unbelievable, actually. So. Well, not unbelievable, but I was not expecting a development like that anytime soon. So I was really, really happy to see it. I know in another article I was reading, ecotourism was cited, especially for whale sharks. Whale sharks are an extremely popular dive species. There's a couple places around the world that are whale shark hotspots. And that was cited as one of the many reasons why there's more enthusiasm for protection. So, um, let's see. So, Minja's honestly a bit surprising to hear that hammerheads were only under Appendix 2. So, and I agree. Hammerheads biologically deserve a lot of protection, and I have heard there's just weird stuff going on with debating why hammerheads need protection. Like I've heard there's some politics of hammerheads. I'm like I don't get it. So, um, 6 months before I found you, there was a new game released in a franchise I love that featured a manta ray as a character, and right now it feels like the only mildly appropriate time to bring that up. Love that. But that's true. I mean, that is what game is that, by the way? Because that is very appropriate. Manta rays now have full protection, so I think that is a great time to bring up the manta ray game. What's funny is like I immediately went to Mantike. No, Mantike and Mantine are the Pokemon, the manta ray Pokemons. So, oh my gosh, let's see. Conservation actions for the Smalltooth Sandtiger. Yes, absolutely no. To argue that an animal doesn't need protection is in itself a crazy argument. 100%. And also just especially given that humans have had such a dominant. Actually, let me phrase that. I hate saying that humans have a dominant impact because it's like humans have had such a, let's just say, wide-ranging impact that it's not unlikely that we haven't touched most large animals. Like most large animals, like absolutely are affected. I mean, I guess everything is affected, but most large animals are definitely affected, and to such a degree where it's like you know protection is necessary. So I'm agreeing. I'm just kind of rambling in a long-winded way, but agreeing that pretty much, and especially for the sharks, most species need protection. Probably all. The only species that seem to be doing relatively okay are the smaller ones, like the deep water lantern sharks and the what do you call them? The sharp-nosed sharks. But most sharks, as a rule, since they grow so slowly and reproduce so slowly, yeah, protection is a good move. Just kind of like universal shark protection. And again, comparing it to whales, I really would love. It would be so cool to see if there was a global movement where sharks are just venerated, where it's like we're just not going to touch them. Like, yeah, that would be incredible. So we'll see. I don't know if we'll see it. I hope we do, but we'll see. So, leave my favorite silly goblin shark besties alone forever. Oh my gosh, like love that. And actually, let's see. Out of curiosity, let's see Goblin Shark Mitsu Kurina Alstoni. Let's see how they're doing. And Goblin Sharks have been fun, where they're getting a lot more attention. Actually, I saw Red List. They're getting a lot more attention lately, so I don't know if that's true. It says least concern, but I definitely want to double check that. It's not going to show me that, is it? Okay. I believe least concern or not enough info. Oh, wait a minute. Really? Wait. Oh, I think I saw it. You're right. Wow, goblin sharks are least concern. That's the best status you can have. That's fantastic. Why are they least concern? I'm very pleasantly surprised. Let's see. Widespread distribution. Unknown population. It's rarely caught. No management action plans. Lack of information on biology. It's possible to infer from limited fisheries interactions across its range. The species occupies areas outside those available to fisheries, although it may be naturally rare. At this time, there's nothing to infer any decline. Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. Oops, sorry. I clicked a little too far. But really cool. Really, really cool to see that goblin sharks are and that's especially cool where like they're like too alien, they're too deep water, they're too, you can't reach them. I actually really love that. Um, that they're out of reach of man, and that's part of why they're doing okay. Um, I remember a grad student I worked with. I asked him one time, "What is like the cleanest, most pristine ocean? Like, what is the safe like the most like untouched thing?" And he had an answer that again is one of those like, oh, that's dumb, like in a sense, like why did I think about that before? It makes no sense. But it's one of those things where like you just need to hear it for it to click. But he just said like wherever there's no people, man. Like, he was like, if you're talking about a major city, you know, like that has such a massive impact on the water. And as an example, the ecoregion that I live in, the Virginia Marine ecoregion has four major cities, impacting it. You have New York, which I love. No hate to any of them. Love New York, but New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington. And they all are huge global cities, impacting this one region where they're enormous population centers. And as you can imagine, I mean, they're all. I would say they're all three pretty, for their size, pretty efficient, pretty cleanish. But they still, the amount of people in that area still results in like nutrient runoff, still results in a lot of demand for local fisheries and fisheries depletion. So overall, the Virginian marine ecoregion is actually pretty okay as an ecoregion, but it is experiencing huge population impact. Whereas if you compare it to one ecoregion over, like the Gulf of Maine and Bay of Fundy, it only has one major city, which is Boston, and it's a little bit. It's just a little bit like, I don't want to say it's nicer. It's just like there's less impact, more wildlife. And if you keep going by that metric further and further north, like the Scotian Shelf, like Halifax, or the Gulf of St. Lawrence, you're getting further and further away from people, further and further away from population impact, and you're getting closer to one of the most productive areas on Earth, and one of the most shark-rich areas on Earth, which is the Grand Banks of Newfoundland. There we go. I had to think for a second. Because I thought it was George's Bank. George's Bank is in Massachusetts. So Grand Banks in Newfoundland is like one of the most productive shark areas on Earth. And it's kind of funny because it's not popularly known as a shark hotspot, but it is actually a shark hotspot. Not for biodiversity, but for biomass. There's just so many dogfish there. Which is it's kind of cool. It's like, it's a dumb thing to think about. But I mean, it's dumb in the sense it's so simple. It's like, yeah, the further away you are from humans, the less impact the environment is. A good metric is like light pollution, where the further you are away, the clearer the night sky at night, or sorry, the clearer the night sky, and that's exactly it as far as like people pollution too, if you will. So by comparison, I'm totally comfortable saying this because I used to live in Florida briefly, but one of the worst places that like at least in the in North America, one of the absolute worst places as far as wildlife impact is Florida. And it makes sense because Florida is surrounded by on all three sides by water, and so it's this flat peninsula that doesn't really have a lot of breakup in the middle, in the interior. It's just like flat peninsula surrounded on all three sides by water, with major cities both in the middle with Orlando, and then on the east coast of Miami, and the west coast with Tampa, and this grid line of roads connecting all of them. Thank goodness you have the Everglades, because the Everglades are this large protected area that helps keep it. Like the Everglades and the Keys are great because those are actually huge ecological areas that are protected. So those are great. But when you look at the populated coastline on the Gulf Coast and East Coast of Florida, I mean, there's so many ecological issues. You have like really bad red tide throughout the year, or not throughout the year, but like in the summer. You have a plethora of invasive species. I mean, it's just like you have like pythons in Florida, which should not be there. You have lionfish in the reefs, which should not be there. You have I want to say nutria, which should not be there. There's a lot of animals that shouldn't be there actually, and I can't remember off the top of my head. So not to rag on Florida, but it's more as an example of this is a high population density area with a lot of impact, and as a consequence, unfortunately there's a lot of like negative ecological impact. And again, shout out to the Keys and Everglades, because those are nice, beautiful swaths of protected area. So that helps provide some relief to that. But it is interesting to compare that kind of environment with New England and Canada, where it's a lot more open, a lot more spacious comparatively. And I think overall those are healthier ecosystems. So it's just really, really interesting. So, but let's see. Just going through the comments. Let's see. Not to get political and biased, privilege for growing Maine, but my whole life has always been unavoidable correlation with presence of certain corporations and pollution. Yes, no, that's true. That's true. Unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of great documentaries and a lot of great case. I should say documentaries because it's really cases, but most of them have been covered in documentaries. Where certain corporations will try to like bypass or circumvent the regulations and the rules, and it you can't sweep that up, or you can't sweep that away. It comes out some way, somehow, pollution or impact to like families and communities. I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. Even if it's still dumb and obvious, it's still good to mention when certain things like streetlights become extremely common. It become hard for people to realize, oh, constant light isn't great. Yeah, thank you, Mingus. I appreciate that. So they're supposed to be protected. Yeah, I think if I'm reading that correctly, Noah, in reference to the Everglades and Keys, yes, 100% agree. And let me know if I'm reading that wrong. I don't mean to read. I hope I'm not reading that wrong. So because I'm trying to think of like if we're referencing Florida animals, because there's quite a few animals that just like are not. There's just so many animals that shouldn't be there, and it's such a shame because like Florida is ecologically a fascinating place. Like I personally really enjoyed the fact that it's this unique dip into the tropical realm where it was cool to see like roseate spoonbills or cranes. Like I forgot that cranes were a thing. Like these giant birds that like just kind of show up out of nowhere. So it's like there's so much potential there, and there's so much great wildlife there, and it's so frustrating that there's a constant contention where you have this like beautiful wildlife and these incredible environments, and there are like swaths of people who want to protect them. Some of the best shark research universities in the world are in Florida, and then you've also have swaths of people who are just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing, man? So, oh, gotcha. Yep, the Everglades, but like in reference to more the entire ecosystem, because I know certain people groups or majority putting this all at risk. Understood and agreed. And I'm just really grateful. I know, I'm very grateful for. I kind of feel like I was about to say I'm very grateful that we have the national park system that we have, and like actually, let me rephrase that. I'm going to rephrase that. I want to say it was Roosevelt, and I could be wrong, but around like the early 1900s, the idea of like protected lands kind of, like I the idea of protected areas. I don't know if they originated in the United States, but they definitely like took off a lot of popularity in the United States. And then you have like the national park system being like the baseline of the model that has been applied to a lot of other parts of the world, or in a lot of other systems, and like it's been a really good conservation benefit that I've really appreciated, because I think there's other parts of the world that have just developed so much without any park system protection system, and they're changing that and have been changing that in the past half century, I want to say, which is great. But I appreciate that, for all the there's a lot of like damage and stuff in the United States, and yet I do appreciate that there's also been a lot of foresight in the United States as far as like how the park system has been built up, where you have state parks echoing national parks, you have some regional parks or county parks actually echoing that as well, and like honestly, at least in the East Coast, the Virginia state parks are really good, and I would say better than some of the national parks, to be honest. So, like, which is kind of funny, but like, but point being is that I appreciate that there's been layers of protection, like layers of like conservation mindset, and it's funny because it's like that's one aspect of like the United States, and then another aspect, of course, is like just a lot of the corporations that we're talking about in the chat, and a lot of the environmental damage they cause. That's another aspect, and it's just like there's that clash. So I'm kind of rambling, but like it's interesting to consider, and I think I just bring up that I just want to bring up gratitude that there a lot of like good conservation action has happened and has been a template for many people to adopt. And I'm just grateful for that. But I'm catching up in the comments. Let's see. Learning that Florida cranes are not equivalent to North American herons. Oh my god, they're huge. Yes. So let's look that up. By the way, Florida crane. I forget if this is a sandhill crane. Oh, it is a sandhill crane. So these guys are really cool. So when I used to live in Florida, I would see them kind of rarely, but they get to be probably about like 5 feet tall. They could be as tall as like a short person. So imagine a bird in North America the size of you, not you as in anyone specifically, but just in general. So they can be kind of intimidating in a cool way. Like they're super super cool. So I don't know much about their temperament though, because I think they're pretty chill. Oh, let's see. You brought up Rachel Carson earlier, so it's like nice to see some of her requests, for lack of a better word, come to fruition. I 100% agree. And she was amazing. I think as I learn more about kind of like conservation legacy and like learn more about just like the environmental movement, like there's a lot. So sorry, Dr. Just called out short people. So sorry. One of my closest friends is quite short, so I apologize. But for Rachel Carson, I I've come to really appreciate, because I think the core of her movement was really the 50s, and that was at a time when people just, they didn't question how much they were taking, and they were like spraying DDT on people, because they thought it was smart. It wasn't. It was a horrible idea. Like they didn't question any of this stuff, and they didn't question the impact, because it was still. What's kind of interesting to remember is that the world population, I think, was less than half of it what it is now, if I'm not mistaken, because like we've grown exponentially as a species. So in the 50s, you have a mix of that where you're not really seeing the effect of human population impact. And the 50s was still before a lot of like the fisheries crashes. Some fisheries did crash in the early 1900s, but really a lot of the shark fisheries or shark crashes, they happened in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s is like the last. I would say the 90s is like the last major crash before we started to realize, oh gosh, we need to change a lot of our habits. Um, so, but anyway, in all that, in this in the 50s, where there was kind of like this attitude of abundance, an attitude of like, oh, we can't do anything bad to the environment, whatever. Really appreciate that Rachel Carson had that foresight to do her advocacy, and it's really been the bedrock for future environmentalists, future conservationists, future movements. It's so cool. We owe a lot to her. And that's another thing too that I really appreciate, where like there's a lot of and I think it's important to point out, like, there's a lot of very valid there's a lot of very valid what's the word, I guess I guess one thing to say is, like, the United States is one of the very few countries that has not signed the Paris Climate Accord, if I'm not mistaken. Like, the United States does a lot of weird things, climate, like as far as like environmentalism and climate change, and like, a lot of weird things that get a lot of press coverage, and deservedly so. A lot of weird stuff. There's a point where the rest of the world is like, what are you doing, man? Like, why? So, and I think in that context, I especially appreciate when we look at history, both history and like what, a lot of like our institutions are, like a lot of like, how do I say this? A lot of like universities or programs or park efforts, like if we look back at like the legacy, it's comforting, or not comforting, but it's like, it's encouraging to know that part of American legacy is conservation. like conservation actually is a huge part of, like, or a lot of environmental movement, both like either as a conscious effort from American government or just people, like Rachel Carson. Yeah, it came from here, and it's something I'm very, very appreciative of, because it's like, it's nice to be reminded of that, and I'm not saying, I do not want to, I don't think I sound like this, but I want to make sure I'm not sounding like I'm dismissing any of the problems, because the problems are there and they're very evident. But I think I really do like remembering the positive things that have also happened, and emphasizing that they have been really important. I mean, the idea, like, if I'm not mistaken, the United States came up with the first national marine sanctuary, which was Monitor. It is Monitor, which is off the coast of North Carolina. And the National Marine Sanctuary System has been a good model for marine conservation areas around the world. And there's other conservation areas that are much larger, and cover a lot more area. That I think our largest one is the Hawaii one. That ironically, if I'm not mistaken, actually, yeah, I'm kind of rambling, because I've just realized it's almost 11. But the point is, it's like, there's a lot of good contributions that have happened, and a lot of the modern environmental movement, a lot of key players are like Rachel Carson, or I don't want to, like, I don't want to shill for Teddy Roosevelt, but Teddy Roosevelt did have a hand in the environmental movement, or even like FDR with the Civilian Conservation Corps, that kind of helped with a lot of like the state parks, at least in this side of the country, had a lot of involvement from the CCC. And so it's just like, I don't know. There's layers of history and layers of. There's a legacy of conservation that I really appreciate. So, and that's all I'll say. I could talk about this for a long time, because there's a lot to chew through. But just reading through the comments, Minjus, I only got to. I almost read straight, but. I'll just read. I only got to learn about her somewhat recently through a uni course I had to take 3 years ago, but she was already ahead of her time, 100%. As much as I want to complain about this country's current affairs, I could never complain about the progress our own people have made towards conservation. Beautiful. I'm going to star that, because that's exactly what I want to get at, which is like, that's a legacy to be proud of. And when I think of like my mentors, I mean some really incredible like conservation biologists or just who've worked here. It's just I really there's a lot to be proud of. Lot not to be proud of. But there's a lot going on that I'm very, very grateful for. And even like now, I mean, you can travel to a like unfortunately probably some of the national parks not so much, but the state parks you can travel to a state park and you could just like enjoy a trail and then come across like a sign that explains like, hey, here's this program that we've done, here's how we brought the species back. um, you know in this region, the big poster children of success stories have been bald eagles and striped bass. Both have been species that we've brought back through concentrated effort, just kind of focusing on what we're doing to them, what their needs are, and just those are success stories. So, um, speaking of success, I think the CITES news is fantastic. I'm so happy, and that's international. I'm done talking about America. like CITES is international, and that is an international win. That is huge for sharks. So I'm so excited to see that the whale shark and the oceanic whitetip are both listed as Appendix 1. The oceanic whitetip in particular is a severely critically endangered species, so it's great to see that it received that protection. So I think the last thing we'll do before we wrap up tonight, and also next week, I think we're going to do the last lambda form, because I think in our last stream we said we're going to do a 1-2 punch. So the last lambda form will be the pelagic thresher. Excuse me, so I'm excited to cover that next week. But until then, the last bit for the Smalltooth Sandtiger is conservation. So, there are some species-specific conservation measures in place for the Smalltooth Sandtiger. In New Zealand, the species is protected under the New Zealand Wildlife Act in 1953. It is illegal to hunt, kill, or harm the species within New Zealand's territorial sea and exclusive economic zone. Interactions with the species must be reported. The species is also protected along New South Wales, coast of Australia, and was provided protection to avoid any misidentification or claims of confusion with the seriously depleted sandtiger population. Smalltooth Sandtiger may benefit from similar protection measures in other parts of its range where it's currently not protected, for example, South Africa, but the sandtiger is protected. And the 2012 parties of the Barcelona Convention agreed that this species, as listed in Annex 2, with specially protected areas of biological diversity protocol for the Mediterranean, cannot be retained on board, transshipped, landed, transferred, stored, sold, displayed, or offered for sale. It must be released unharmed and alive to the extent possible, pursuant to recommendation GFCM 36/2012-1 for FAO. In Croatian waters, Smalltooth Sandtiger Shark is proclaimed as a strictly protected species, and the species is also protected off Malta. The Smalltooth Sandtiger Shark is known to occur in several marine parks across its distribution, including Chagos Marine Protected Area in Central Indian Ocean, Kermadec Islands Marine Reserve off New Zealand, Malpelo Fauna and Flora Sanctuary off Colombia, and the Galapagos Marine Reserve, offering the species some refuge from fishing in these areas. Further information is required on the distribution, ecology, and life history of the Smalltooth Sandtiger, as well as interactions with fisheries across its range. To conserve the species and to facilitate recovery, a suite of measures will be required, which may include total protection, spatial management, bycatch mitigation, and harvest and trade management measures, including international trade measures. Effective enforcement of measures will require ongoing training and capacity building, including in the areas of species identification. Catch monitoring is needed to help understand population trends and inform management. Oh, cool! Minjas, I've counted over 7 personal bald eagle sightings this year, the most I've seen since 2016, hoping their numbers keep growing. Awesome! This is so cool. And that's especially exciting because you might have, do you know if you have nests, just like bald eagle nests in your area? What's kind of cool is that in Virginia, there's a couple spots that have like active, like dedicated nests year round. So Jamestown, like the famous like John Smith Pocahontas Jamestown, has bald eagle nests. So there's actually, I think there may be, I think there may be one or two breeding pairs that are like dedicated and known in that area. Like bald eagles are very active in that area, so that's a cool hotspot. And I want to say in the Potomac, kind of near Occoquan, I think there is a pair there too. So, but they're really cool. It's really cool to see like when you're in the like if you're in the kind of like the estuary part of the Chesapeake Bay, so you're not in salt water. They don't really like salt water. That actually no, they do. They do in other parts of the world. In the bay, in the Chesapeake Bay, bald eagles don't really like salt water that much. They don't really like mountains. They kind of like that coastal plain estuary part. So, oh cool. I've only been able to positively identify one. I've seen three other possibly nests, but given my location, items always possibly that I was just looking at osprey nests. So yep, they do look similar. So ospreys are awesome. I love ospreys, by the way. But they do look really similar because they're kind of like the rough looking bowl shaped nests. So, but that's really cool. I hope you keep seeing them. It's just like it's so and that's also kind of like it's actually really amazing to kind of think about where the big issue with the bald eagle was DDT, and that was one of the first issues that Rachel Carson brought up. And it's kind of cool that she was before my time, and we're benefiting a little bit from her actions and her endeavors, where we're enjoying bald eagles. We can see them, and in part that was part of the environmental movement that she helped establish. So. Whales, I know I keep talking about whales tonight, but like whales similarly, there was a concentrated effort to conserve them, and it's amazing that, I mean, in Virginia, we have whales coming back down this time of year, and you can see them. You can see humpbacks whales. If you're really lucky, you can see right whales. That one is like the most endangered. Fin whales, minke whales, like we have them. So similarly, tying it all together, I am hopeful for sharks. There's really big news from sites today, and I think that's a positive sign for things to come. For the Smalltooth Sandtiger, based on the fact that it's a popular dive species, it is found in these marine reserves, and that there is protection for them. I'm hopeful for the species. I know it's endangered currently, but I am hopeful that the species is actually going to be okay. So, thank you. Yes, oh my god, who knew Shark Study Party wouldn't reunite my love for Rachel Carson? So yeah, she was awesome. So we owe a lot to her, so 100%. But thank you guys so much for watching. This was a really fun stream. I was really excited to cover the species, and I'm really glad that we not only covered the Smalltooth Sandtiger Shark and finished all Sandtiger Sharks, but we also got to open up the door to conservation topics. And we got to share some amazing news regarding shark conservation in general. So that's actually one of the best developments we've had in the entire lifetime of this stream. That upgrade in status for whale sharks and oceanic whitetips, that is a humongous development. So it takes time for that kind of progress to be made, and I'm just really, really happy to witness that, and that we all get to witness that together. So it's super cool time. So, but thank you so much for watching. I'm excited next week for the pelagic thresher. It will be our final lamniform shark. So we will cover the entire order, which is until they discover new species. They probably will discover new species at some point, but until then, hope you guys are enjoying the December vibes, and I will see you next week for the pelagic thresher. So, till then, have fun, stay safe, and I will see you soon. Bye.